Well, hello, and loving welcome to all of you joy seekers out there. Good morning, afternoon, evening, and in our guest's case, midnight. First, I want to welcome my rantalicious co-host, Brian Kelly.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Brian.
That's a new one. Your rantalicious co-host. Hello. Hi, Judy. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm back in San Diego. Finally, I've been traveling around what seems like nonstop since I got back from Africa, but I wanted to quickly just take a moment and thank everyone for their amazing love and kind words through Facebook, my blog, everything else from the show from last week for my grandmother. She ended up passing, I believe, on
Sunday?
Friday night. And it was really beautiful. I mean, everybody, the whole family was there, and we were able to spend a lot of time with her before she went. And it wasn't until everyone left the room that it seemed like she wanted to go alone. And whatever way that it ultimately ended up working out, it was it was a lot more. There was so much more joy and peace and love than sorrow and sadness, and that's how my grandma would have wanted it, and it was I wouldn't exchange those last moments that I was able to spend with her for anything in the world. And to know that I had so much love and support coming from so many was just heart-filling. So I just want anybody that's listening that sent me a message or that just sent me love, and you didn't have to send anything at all, thank you so much, and I'm really grateful, and I really appreciate it. As you as well, Judy.
Absolutely, Brian. I'm really, really just thrilled that you were able to spend all of that time with her and with your whole family during that time, too. I think it's so important. And, I think that now we're able to see things in such a different way, that we celebrate the life instead of mourn, the fact that they've gone on when actually they're set free.
What's funny is when I was a kid, and I'm going to say it live on the radio, I was scared shitless of death. And it was a thought that I couldn't even bear to try to wrap my head around. And once I started waking up to the reality of what's really going on in this world, and understanding that there's really death is an illusion and it's just a transition onto another place, the idea of death all of a sudden started to become really exciting in a really not disgusting and unhealthy kind of way, instead of fearful kind of way. And that's the last thing I said to my grandma. I was in the room and I was alone. I was laying there. I was sitting there with her, and I said, Grandma, I'm so excited for you. I'm just it's okay to let go. My gosh, you gotta have this experience. Like, go and live it and be it and love it and just don't look back. And it felt so good because there was none of that, attachment or, I love my grandma, but I know that I'll see her again, and just to be able to see her going to a place where she doesn't have to suffer anymore is definitely worth being excited about for her case, and what a long ways I came from that fearful child of fearing the unknown.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Go Grandma.
Yeah, go Grandma. She is expanded big time now. And now I am so happy to introduce to all of you a young woman who I find to be an absolute joy. And by the way, she can give Brian a run for his money in the rantalicious framework. Her wisdom, expansive knowledge, her wonderful gift of articulating all of it is exactly why I am so happy to share the gift of Kelly-Ann Maddox with all of you. Hello and welcome, Kelly-Ann.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Brian. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And hello to all of you out there in the chat room and listeners everywhere. I am so honored to have you all with us. We all are. And we're just going to have a really fun show tonight. So thank you so much for joining us, all of us. So I'm going to go ahead and put Kelly on the spot. Kelly-Ann on the spot. And Kelly, tell us, first of all, let me just do a little bit here of, no, I think I'm going to let you go first. you got to the place of right here, right now, just in a, you know how to do this. How did you get to where you are right now, and what brings you joy, my dear?
Well, the tarot thing's been going on for well over a decade. I was first given a pack of tarot cards by my auntie when I was about 13 years old, and it was really just a case of playing with them for a very long time and feeling that they really resonated with me. I've definitely always had a spiritual core. I've definitely always been in touch with it from being a very young kid. And what's really led me to the point I'm at now and going on from that is that in April I decided to get my diploma in spiritual counselling, which I ended up getting with distinction. And now I'm kind of trying to figure out where I want to go from that. I know that I'm definitely not interested in kind of the traditional psychotherapeutic route. I'm definitely interested in holistic things, alternative therapies. I'm really interested in using tarot for self-exploration. So I guess I'm trying to just pull those interests together and make it my own, rather than kind of walking down an institutionalized or straightforward pathway. So I suppose that's how I ended up writing the blog and how I ended up trying to put my ideas forth on YouTube, and also just wanting to connect with online community as well. I really felt that it was the time to do it. I put it off for a really long time. I'd kind of been lurking and enjoying different people's videos, but not feeling like I really had anything of worth to say. And then after a while, I was like, no, I really want to start talking about tarot, and I really want to start talking about all of this stuff. So I started with that, and that's how I ended up here, even to the point of being invited on a wonderful show like this. That's kind of how it all came to being, I suppose.
Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. I'd love for... Okay, so let me go ahead and just say that I found Kelly-Ann because I was really interested in, all of a sudden, actually, it came to me in a very short amount of time that I was to learn about the tarot cards as, at the time I didn't know, but as a tool to help with my transformational thought coaching, actually to use the tool of the tarot along with my transformational thought coaching. And I've just absolutely, I can't even tell you how thrilled I am that I found it and that I've been able to use it. But and I had a wonderful teacher here who taught me intuitive tarot, and then I immediately decided to just immerse myself for about 6 weeks, and I found Kelly-Ann's YouTube channel called The Four Queens, and I was so impressed and so amazed at how she sees the tarot as the story of the fool's journey, and it's the hero's journey as well. And I'll definitely let her tell you a little bit about that, because it's really a lot to do with the psychology of, how we shift through beingness, actually. And I found it to just be incredibly intuitive and very, very wise. And so when I knew that I was going to be getting this show, I started kind of stalking her a little bit. It probably felt like that. I was like, Kelly-Ann, you want to do this? I'd really want to have you come on. And she's like, let me see the show. I'll listen to the show, and then maybe we can talk. And I think she was really thrilled with the
Judy, stalk people? No, I don't believe it.
I know. It's not like me, truly. It's not. But, yeah, her I did, because I was just absolutely overwhelmed with the wisdom that Kelly-Ann brings from her inner core.
I have a question for Kelly-Ann, if I may.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this call, a lot of people out there that will listen to the archive that are absolutely fascinated by tarot, myself being one of them. I'm a Reiki practitioner. My fiance is a Reiki master. We have all sorts of decks of spiritual cards. None of them actual tarot, but the tarot and the cards, they have a way of speaking to you and sharing messages at the moments you need to hear them most. And it's very mystical in nature, and it's one of those kinds of things that people can either say, hogwash, or they can say, oh, what's this all about? Because there's something to it there. I think that when you have more than one experience that's positive in nature, and for me it's like if you can have one, and you can have an experience where you take something away and you feel expanded as a result of it. Now all of a sudden you're hungrier for more and more and more. And I see tarot for a lot of people as being that thing for them, and I assume, considering your background and your history with kind of immersing yourself into doing tarot, there's got to be a pretty good storyline behind where you got your original fascination from it and how that ultimately took shape for you. I'd be curious to hear that story if you'd be willing to share it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've always been very interested in mythology, and the first deck that I was actually given was the Mythic Tarot, which bases its structure on Greek mythology. So a big part of my desire to be close to the cards and play with them and learn about them tied into my interest in gods like Kronos and Zeus and these goddesses Demeter and the story of Hades. That was really visual for me, and that really pulled me in. And I think that even card decks, be they tarot, oracle, whatever, even decks that follow a very non-linear structure and don't actually have any specific nods to mythopoetic content, make you feel the power of the collective unconscious. So I work specifically with the Jungian idea that all of the myths, all of the folk tales, the stories, the fairy tales from time immemorial are actually just mirror reflections of who we are ourselves and of the life experiences that we actually go through. They mirror our experience. And for me, tarot is actually just a perfect mirror reflection of everything that we go through in life. So as I grew older, the connection between mythology and any system which uses pictorial content to really tap into who we are and what we go through as human beings was really what made me click. When I was younger, of course, I didn't understand that. I just thought I was interested in these Greek stories, But as I grew older, 14, 15, 16, I realized those Greek stories are to do with me. They are about my soul. They're about my experience, both in my human body and transpersonally. And then as you get older, you realize they're about everyone's experience. When you start reading for other people, they have these same epiphanies and these same feelings of shifting and revelation when you read for them. And you think, this is really about the collective unconscious. This is about us all being connected in a web and being able to overtly empathize with each other's stories. So that's where it became kind of a really big thing for me.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. Well, I have to assume that, there's in anything in life where you find it and there's something in there that clicks and it becomes a fascination and almost an obsession, a healthy one, not like smoking cigarettes. Then it's almost like, and I'm sorry for all those smokers out there, no judgment. I have a lot of friends that smoke. But it to me that signifies being in alignment with your purpose in this world. If you can, Bashar says follow your highest excitement, because it's when you're in the highest alignment with your higher self and the alignment with the universe. And when you can be super passionate about anything, it's almost like God talking to you saying, go, 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 go. So I love hearing those stories. Obviously you have how long have you been doing tarot now?
14 or 15 years now.
14 or 15 years now. Can you explain, just because I'm curious, so tarot has a way of communicating with the individual or the recipient of the energy. Is it guided by some higher energetic source that you can how can you put a name to it, but that you can classify it by some representation, or how does that, because so many times you sit there and you get a reading and you're just like, holy shit, this is crazy how right on this is.
It's that way with me all the time.
What's guiding that?
Yeah, and with me, I personally think that we all filter the tarot experience through our own consciousness, and I've heard very many different people who are proficient with tarot or who love getting tarot readings say all kinds of different things about where they think these incredible coincidences and these incredible revelations come from. In fact, I had a client at one time who requested a reading from me, and she told me after she got the reading that she was really pleased with her spirit guides for telling me to say those things. And for me, this was strange because I was filtering it through my consciousness, and from my consciousness, it doesn't really work like that. That's not, from my perspective, how it's happening. But from her perspective, it's totally her spirit guides whispering in my ears, telling me as a vehicle, as a vessel, what to put forward to her. And I am merely just a receptacle, if you like, for their wisdom. And I didn't feel any resentment over this at all. I thought that was actually kind of a cool idea. And I feel that that is just as possible an explanation as anything else. I think that everybody filters it through their own consciousness, and it's about what they truly feel it represents. So if I am merely the vehicle for somebody's spirit guides, and that's how they want to see it, and that's how they best take the information on, then I'm no judge of whether or not that's the case. For me personally, for example, I don't refer to myself as psychic at all. And the reason that I don't do this is not because I take any issue whatsoever with anybody who does, but purely because I'm uncomfortable with the amount of cultural baggage surrounding the word. I'm kind of uncomfortable with this idea that we now have that psychic ability is a gift that you're either born with or not. There's this vibe that people who are psychic were born with it, that it's hereditary, whereas I feel that psychic really should be a word that's completely synonymous with intuition, and that's something that we all have, right? That's something that we can all tap into on whatever level we want to, and however hard we want to put that diligent effort in to get that handle on our own intuition. So the reason I don't use the word psychic is because I feel that it implies exclusivity, and I think for me that's a dangerous concept when it comes to something that is actually so universal as the tarot experience. So I really feel it's just about empathy, and I feel it's about understanding how we are all connected to something which is far larger than ourselves, and how we share so many experiences and relate to each other because of that emotional empathy we feel. That for me is the key. But like I said, for other people, it's their spirit guides, that kind of thing.
I'd like to actually tell you what I sense from that. For me, when I'm doing a reading, and how I do it is I connect with the cards. I can feel the energy between the cards and myself. I can feel it spiraling up, connecting with my higher self. And then what I do is I pull in the person that I'm reading for into that energy field. And I can feel that as well. I've had some really interesting experiences with that. But I pull that in. And to me, intuitively, what I get from that is that the cards are actually reading their energy signature at the moment.
Yeah, I totally get that idea of connection, and I would definitely say that it's very important for me that people understand that I do consider myself to be deeply intuitive, and I think that is part of the reason that I have the connection that I do with the cards. It's never just been a straightforward case of interpreting the meaning of the card. You have to go with your intuition, and it's the intuition that makes a meal of it. So you are trying to pick up on, what the deepest needs and core desires of that client are, why they're coming to you at this exact time, why not 2 weeks ago, why not 3 weeks into the future, why this core moment have you guys chosen to connect in the great web of things. And I think that's something that I can connect to from, like you said, from the perspective of my higher self, or from source perspective. And that's something that I find really exciting. But again, I don't see any reason to put a gate of exclusivity around it. I think that it's totally universal, as I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the great thing about it. And it's why I decided to do things like the trainee tarot course on YouTube, and now the Soul Tarot workshop, is to really kind of blow open this conception that it is, God-given, or you're either born with it or you're not. You have to go to somebody that has had it handed down to them through a bloodline. I totally don't believe that. I think it's open to everybody, and I think everybody can have a slice of the pie if they want it.
What are those two things that you're doing now that you referred to? Might as well. You got a lot of people listening, and I don't know what they are. So you want to talk about some of the projects that you're doing real quick before we go on to whatever it is Judy has on her agenda? What are you offering? What are you working on right now? Where's your heart at? What do you I know that you have a big following of people that follow your YouTube stuff, but what drives you every day? What projects are you working on?
What drives me at the moment really is I would love to progress further with my writing. I'd love to write about tarot, and I'd love to write about personal development. What I really want to do is I want to write for food. I want to write to pay rent. That's really where I want to go, and where I've wanted to go for a long time. And I just feel that somewhere out there is some kind of I don't know, magazine or periodical about spirituality, the journey of personal growth, and I feel like I could fit in with that team and do something which certainly won't make me rich, but will make me happy and give me a roof over my head. So the writing is where I want to go. I published an article on adventures in manifesting a while ago, and that actually stoked a fire underneath me. But I had so many other things that I was doing in other areas of my life that it got placed on the back burner. But I really feel that the second half of the year is going to be about pushing myself to try and write for other places. So that would be really enjoyable for me, as well as, of course, the blog now is getting to the end of its second year, so I think there's definitely a lot of material on there, and I've almost finished my tarot definitions on there, so again, that could be worked into something else. I'm writing 2 ebooks. I have another one I'm writing in my head. So really, it's all about writing for me at the moment, although, of course, I do offer tarot readings on the shop, and I do offer Skype spiritual counselling sessions on the shop, and I absolutely love the shop. The shop is my baby. There is nothing I love more than opening it up in the morning and finding feedback from clients, messages from people asking about readings, people purchasing readings. That just absolutely fills me with joy, 100%. I love it.
The shop.
Etsy shop.
Oh, yeah, my Etsy shop, yeah.
It's called the Four Queens as well, right?
Yeah, and I've been running that for, I guess it'll be about a year now. I opened it quite a while after I started writing the blog, and I just love it. I love connecting with people. I love getting to the core of their issues, and what I do is I write quite lengthy email readings, so your standard regular size reading will be a minimum of 2,000 words. I just did one today that ended up being 3,500.
Wow.
So it really feeds my dual passions of tarot and helping people.
And writing.
Like tarot and helping, and also writing.
Yes. I got a question or a comment, actually, that was in the chat room. And it said something about the French tarot having nothing to do with current tarot cards. Do you know anything about that?
Is this the Marseille deck and things of that nature, the very old decks? Or are we talking about, like...
I think probably so.
My understanding of the Marseille deck is that it's one of the earliest French decks. I'm not hugely adept at tarot history. That's not really a massive passion for me, although I did go over it in the first part of the trainee tarot course.
I remember that, yeah.
Sure, I mean, no course on tarot would be complete without a little bit of history buffing. But I say that the Marseille deck is the one that built the template for the 78 cards we know now. But the first kind of understanding we have of tarot was as kind of a parlour game. The first deck was commissioned, I believe, by a duke in, 1500s in Italy. And we don't think that the original intention of tarot was to divine the future or for personal development. We think it was actually some kind of game that was played amongst the aristocracy, which would make a lot of sense. And I think from there, it kind of formulated over time. So the original decks aren't going to look the same, and certainly, of course, they were not intended for the same purpose.
Right, they didn't have the higher arcana originally, right?
Indeed, yeah. I think this is something that was added on later, or there were certain key figures that would have been kind of around in the parlour game, but actually everything was structured later on to accommodate the kind of reasoning we have for using it now rather than for parlour games. Although there are a couple of books available about, I think it's called Trionfi, which was the original Italian parlour game that we believe was played with a very early form of tarot. And I think that kind of has a few guesstimates at how it would have been played and other ideas for how you can play games with tarot. But I'm definitely no expert on original French decks or anything like that. I have to admit it's not my particular area of interest. I don't know if the person could maybe...
No, I think you did a good job.
Okay.
I want a reading.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
another time.
I love doing them. Come on over and get one. I love it.
Where do you operate out of, real quick?
Etsy.
I offer it on the Etsy shop at the moment. I don't have my own website to offer them at the moment purely because I'm a little bit of a technophobe, and I really appreciate the fact that a monkey could use Etsy. And that's no insult to monkeys whatsoever, but literally...
That means I can do it.
Farmyard animals, anything with claws, paws. I mean, Etsy is very simple and straightforward, and I really like that about it for now. I have had people in my life offering to kind of sort out my own website for me with the domain name and everything like that. But for now, I think I'm just going to keep things a little bit more risk-free. So I offer via Etsy at the moment, and it's just a straightforward payment using PayPal or your card details, and the reading comes to you within a 7-day period.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. 7 days, you get it later. Okay, got it.
I would love for you too, Kelly-Ann, to kind of give a not hugely detailed overview of the journey of the Fool and how it interrelates to our journey as human beings going through this shift, this change, this thing that we call life, and especially now where we are right now. Because right now, it was interesting, before the show, about an hour before the show, I got a picture of the Tower card. And and I'm feeling like that's what's going on right now. The Tower card is kind of very indicative of what's happening around us right now. And so I would love for you to kind of take us through a little journey. And again, it doesn't have to be extremely long, but a little journey through what the tarot cards convey to us as a story of our lives.
Sure, of course. I think with the Fool's Journey, there are many different ways that it can be interpreted and approached, but I like to think of it as having two distinct setups, particularly for me in my own life. Firstly, you can lay the major arcana out from the Fool right through to the world, and you can follow it through as a linear journey in your own life, and you can really identify different themes in it that you will have encountered in early childhood. For example, the first times you realised that you had an inner voice that you followed, your relationship with your mother and father and the wider family, and then onward into school, getting that sense of independence that comes with things like the Chariot card, and you can go on and on into it, and then you find that spot on the Fool's Journey where you currently are, or something that you're returning to and revisiting. And that can be very interesting. But I also think that the Fool's Journey works very well when we mix it all up. You can actually, for example, right now at this point in your life, take the major arcana in its entirety, sit down with it in front of you in a meditative state, and actually plan out your journey as you feel it's gone for the last year, for the last 3 years, for the last 5 years, even for the last 3 months. You can identify which of the cards have major significance for you and which of them actually signify and pertain to the part of your life that you're actually in now. So it's almost like a bit of a picture book, in fact, the journey of the Fool. You can seek the cards you relate to, and you can also have a look at the cards that represent where you want to be, what you want to manifest, and kind of lay those down as well. So it's kind of a way of exploring your inner and outer life, in a sense. And I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the Tower, because we talked before, Judy, about how the Tower has often a very negative connotation because it's all about breakage and damage, in a sense. It's about not understanding where the stable foundations are, losing things.
The crumbling of the structure.
Exactly, the complete crumbling of the structure. And I think that's where a lot of people feel they are right now. But I think that the upside of that is that a lot of the time we're so scared of releasing things and letting go of things, or having things ripped out of our hands, that we don't recognize that we're making room for what's coming. And we don't recognize that a lot of those things that we were holding on to for comfort were really just limiting us. They were holding us back. We may not wish to believe it, but over time, don't we so often come to realize that that was the case, and that we now are more free once we've done the grieving for what's past?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's absolutely necessary. Don't you think so, Brian? That, it's what I call the birthing process. Let go of the womb. The womb has already done what it can do. It's breaking down. It no longer can serve us. It's time to be born.
Yeah, I mean, I think the source of all misery, it comes from soiled expectations and attachments to various things that we try to hold on to in our lives. And I think that part of the human condition is that until we figure out there's an easier way, we attach ourselves to almost everything. Whether it be material possessions, this thing, this house, this car, this relationship, this idea of myself, where I want to be tomorrow, a year from now, 10 years from now, and you hold on to these attachments, and then when they don't go your way or you lose them, you feel you've lost a piece of yourself. And And when you can really work on letting go of all of that, knowing that part of life, part of our journey in this body as this soul, it requires for us to go through the process of having things and then letting them go. And then if you realize that everything is in a constant state of flux and you're constantly receiving things and you're constantly losing things, and you do your best to try not to hold any attachments to any of them, you free yourself from the burden of that suffering that goes along with losing things that you draw your identity from. And that's a big one for me, since a lot of people have heard about our trip coming back from the Sahara. I think that's one of the biggest mental shifts that I've had since I've been back. And some of the people who listened to the show last night realized that there's a lot of experiences that took place out there that have been really hard for us to articulate, because there are experiences that can't necessarily be words don't do them justice. But I know one of the biggest things for me, one of the biggest adjustments, one of the most liberating things that I've experienced is really truly feeling free of all of it. I kid you not, my house could burn down tomorrow, and while the fire is lit and I'm watching the thing go up in flames, I would be asking myself what the purpose is, and I would be in awe of what comes next. There's nothing in my house that I could lose, that I would feel that I would have sorrow over for more than a few minutes, because I look at my life now, and I look at it and realize that if something happens, none of it's by chance. It all has purpose. When it does take place, I can start asking why, and as opposed to playing the victim role, I can start looking at the opportunity that comes.
Yeah, what gift is there in this for me? Because I know there is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree with that, and I think from your perspective right now, you don't see it as commendable to think that way. It's just the way that you've become. But for a lot of people who aren't there yet and who wish to be where you are now, it's hugely commendable to have taken that journey. And I've spoken to a few people who say things like, well, I can't say it's all for a purpose because I don't believe that. I don't believe in higher power. I don't believe there's a plan, or I don't believe there's destiny. And I say to them, yeah, but what's better? Belief is a tool. Think about the beliefs that serve you, and think about the beliefs that keep you stagnant. If you want to believe that it's all blind chaos and nothing is fair and that everything happened to you for no good reason, that's fine, but you will fall victim to victimhood itself unless you actually address it with this positivity in mind of, okay, what is there? What is there for me to learn? So, I think belief is a tool, and I think you use your tools a lot better than a lot of other people do. I think a lot of people kind of leave them to rust and think that they don't have any control over their beliefs and how to use their beliefs to feel positive about things like their house burning down, for example.
We've actually talked about this on our show last night, and what you just described is, you can have attachments to beliefs, and true cognitive dissonance is the way that our soul evolves, when every single one of our beliefs is malleable and capable of transforming. That's another now we've kind of gone on to a whole nother liberating concept for the heart, mind, and soul, which is having an open mind enough to allow every single one of your beliefs to be written on a moment-by-moment basis.
Right, I remember that. That was really good.
You're, for example, you could be, let's say you're sitting in the audience at a magic show in Las Vegas, and this guy's, 1 second he's in the box, and then another second he's out of the box and he's like out in the audience. Well, with your eyes, what you saw is the guy disappeared and he's in the audience. And wow, it's magic. But it's some kind of an optical illusion. So if you wed your idea to this man actually disappeared out of this box and materialized, I'm not saying that's impossible, because everything is possible, then you realize that once you realize it's an illusion, that entire belief has now been crushed. And you can either continue to believe that guy disappeared and materialized in the audience, or you can say, okay, now I have more information available to me. It allows me to restructure the way that I look at things. It allows me to see things through a different perspective, or see it from let's just say, even multidimensionally, when you look at things from multiple angles. And then all of a sudden there's no defeat in the idea that something that you believed and you believed so strongly about has been changed, because you have no attachment to that belief. You know that as the best way that we could possibly grow and evolve as people is if we're always an empty cup and we always allow for our whatever it is that we are working on to expand and to grow to another level, and holding on to beliefs, I would say, is probably one of the biggest attachments that people hold on to. And it's happening so much now. You talk about what's going to happen for you, Kelly-Ann, toward the second half of 2013. I think that that's a really good illustration for how a lot of people are feeling in this pivotal year that we're in right now. Is, whoa, if we think we've seen anything yet in the first 6 months, we've got another freaking thing coming, because it hasn't even started yet.
That's absolutely true. I love that idea as well about belief being one of the biggest forms of attachment. And for me, it used to be like that for me so much in the past, and it was mostly because I was absolutely gosh darn petrified of being wrong. And this is something that I inherited from my father, this idea that my beliefs that were backed up by so much empirical evidence, and that I would spout in this very eloquent way. And if somebody handed my arse to me, I'd be like, oh my God, no, I have to run into a hole now and die of shame. This is terrible. Completely wrecked my self-image. What am I going to do? Whereas now I'm like, thank you for showing me the other side of the coin. That has given me so much. It's expanded me so much.
I think we all have to go through this, though. I think each one of us has to move through this scenario in our lives, sometimes over and over and over again. We have to continue each one of our lessons until we finally get it and integrate it and move through it. And I think that, this belief system, especially now, because we've really been conditioned so not perfectly, that's really not the right word, but so meticulously for, generations upon generations, that, we've all thought that life was this construct around us, and now we're learning that it's all crumbling around us, and none of it is true. What does that leave us with? Who are we without all of that? We are who we are inside, and that's what it really has to get to. That's what I love about the tarot, because it always takes you right back to who are you inside? What are your beliefs? Are you seeing things that are presenting around you, or are you creating things that don't need to be created just because it's an old thought system that you're used to, having, this incredible little gash that you're following? It's like, okay, it's the easiest way for me, so I'll go into that, and it's a little harder to jump outside of that and create your own little path. And so, right now we're meeting ourselves for the first time. We're really meeting ourselves, because everything else is falling down. Everything we thought we knew, everything that we thought we could believe in. Not that many of us even wanted to, but a lot of people do.
It's you can almost interchange the word belief with feeling. I feel instead of I believe, because we all know feelings are fleeting. You could be feeling great one minute and not so great the next. Because so why would you get attached to a feeling? Why would you? I mean, unless you want to get attached to the feeling of joy, and that's why we created this show, isn't it, Judy?
That's it.
Amen.
That is it. And the feeling thing, that's an interesting conversation all in itself. I kind of, when you said that, I wanted to counter it somehow, because something inside of me is saying, oh, no, because my feelings I trust. And I trust my feelings more than I trust anything. But, is there a difference between feelings and emotions? Are emotions what you're talking about? I'm not sure.
Well, the way that I look at it is like, if I say, okay, I believe in I believe in an afterlife, or what's a really good example? You could easily say, for me anyways, because every feeling, every belief, it's, unless it comes from somebody else or something that you read, which we adopt other people's beliefs and feelings all the time, ultimately, if it's not coming from one of those things, it's ultimately only coming from your own experience. And so there's so many, this is something that we touched on a little bit on the show last night too. There's so much that we have experienced that causes us to feel a certain way, but then we experience something new and it causes us to feel something completely and totally different. Because so much that happens in our life is beyond our ability to prove it. You know, I can't prove to you there's an afterlife, but I know there is one, because it's kind of a knowingness. I know that the soul never dies. Well, can I prove that? No, I can't. I know there's a creator source. Can I prove that? No, I can't. So people like to get into a battle of words, I think, a lot of the time. And I think that what Kelly-Ann mentioned a little while ago is really just letting yourself go of the need to constantly feel like you're right. I don't care if I'm right or wrong anymore. You're never going to really find me in any arguments of, no, you're wrong, I'm right, because you can never win that argument.
Right.
Arguments can't be won. People think, somebody comes out of an argument and they feel that they've won. Well, what does that get the person that supposedly didn't win the argument? Now,
Kelly-Ann, what card is that?
Upset. What card is that?
Well, that could be a few different cards, let's face it.
Yeah.
In the major arcana, I'd say the devil would be quite a good one in terms of maybe playing devil's advocate, so that's kind of a play on words for me.
I'm thinking of a lower arcana card that has the winner who actually doesn't win and the people walking away who haven't won, and it's
the Five of Swords.
That's it, the Five of Swords.
The Five of Swords is so great because it can represent, it can go a few different ways, but in a lot of ways I feel like it's the mediator in the middle, and he's kind of clearing up the debris from these two people fighting, and they've been unable to reach their mutual consensus. So they've just kind of walked away from each other. But I think,
and he's a little worse for the wear as well.
Oh, God, yeah, he's like, oh, for God's sake, I'm glad that's over. You two hit it on the head. It's closing time. Go home, sleep it off. I think a lot of the time, we can just, we can do this wonderful thing where we laugh and we agree to disagree. I remember I have this friend who lives in Washington, D.C., and she told me a few years ago that she drove past a protest, and it was basically an anti-fundamentalism protest. So it was basically a protest against protesting, in a sense. It was a protest against a very staunch stance. And some of the banners that they were holding said things like, maybe you're wrong, maybe I'm wrong, let's just go get a beer. I love that.
I love it.
Like when we connect Brahmin, when we connect with oneness, and we can debate and we can really enjoy the mental exercise that we get from that debate, and in the end we can slap each other on the back and say, hey, I think you're going to hell and you think I'm going to be surfing around on the 7th layer of wherever, but we're here. What are the odds of us both being here propping up this bar at this moment in time? Yeah, it's that important he's right,
Yeah.
Kelly, you're wrong.
See about that, Brian.
I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Kelly-Ann, I only live about an hour north of D.C.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Cool. That's epic. But it's kind of, DC's kind of a crazy place, right? Because you have all of the,
I guess down there.
the suits, power, and the craziness happening, and then you have people protesting against all of that and saying, no, this is all wrong. Let's go for a picnic and chill out.
It's funny because I just got into. I posted. I have a blog, Kelly-Ann, that I post all sorts of different stuff on. But a couple days ago, 5 or 6 days ago, I posted a video of Glenn Beck, and he was going through all these cue cards.
Oh yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, so it was basically apologizing for all of the the messages that he's given all over the years, and he's basically going through this spiritual awakening at cue cards, talking about how people need to love and there doesn't need to be any more divide, and basically going against everything that he's preaching for all these years. Long story short, it appeared he had some kind of an awakening, some kind of a spiritual awakening, something that caused him to start to reevaluate the messages that he had been sharing for all his years in broadcast television. And so I posted it on Facebook, and the post I put is it real or for show? Let's hear people's opinions on it. And the whole discussion started around the idea of people trying to describe in their terms what an awakening is. And there was the people that, awakening is only true saints and sages have, could tell you about what an awakening really is. And I usually put these posts up, and then I'll follow the comments to kind of gauge what people are saying, what they're feeling, so I can kind of get an idea of where people are at. But for this particular one, a couple of these these people that were making a comment on this post were so off track. I had to get involved, and I had this discussion with this guy, and everybody respected this guy's opinion on this particular Facebook group, and they were kind of going with what he was saying, but I was very politely saying, well, no, very respectfully, I have to say that I disagree with a lot of what you're saying, and you can't say that awakening is reserved for saints and sages and people that are quote unquote enlightened. I said awakening is a process. I think we're all in this process of awakening. We might be varying degrees along the spectrum of where we're at in that process of awakening, but you can't say that it's. So we got into this discussion where it was kind of back and forth, and finally I put everything I had into really expressing how I felt about it, and he goes, I must say, Brian, I really appreciate your passion. And I'm being judgmental, and there's probably a little bit of arrogance that came through in there, and he totally. We both, throughout the entire discussion, did it with all the respect in the world. We were both very considerate of each other's opinions, and I even made a comment at the very end of it. I said we should share this dialogue because there's so many heated blogs, and threads, and Facebook where people are just at each other's throats, and just wanting to chomp each other up and spit each other out. And
it's old programming.
And it was just so. It was like one of the healthiest discussions that I've been a part of, where both people walked away feeling good about everything that they had said and respecting the other for what the other said. And I felt that was honestly one of the coolest things. I was so proud of him and me that we were able to kind of hold that higher vibration of really just hearing each other out. No one needed to necessarily be right or wrong. We both said what we needed to say, and if everybody could start implementing just a small little piece of that as an idea of things that could help us to overcome our sensational lust to always think that we know how everything is and hold opinions that are so built in stone that aren't flexible enough to be recreated.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say I completely agree, and there's conversations like that I've had in my life, and I've just wished that they could be recorded and sent into schools all over the world or something. Like, as Judy said, it's about conditioning, and it's about those moments where you see yourself rejecting that conditioning and saying, no, that's not how I want to do it from heart level. I don't want to win. I want to argue, to be persuaded, to be expanded, to be in touch with other people. And when you see yourself doing that, it's a moment that you could really frame and put under glass and love forever.
Absolutely. Judy, what were you going to say?
I forgot.
I'm sorry.
No, that was perfect. It was absolutely perfect, just what it is. We were talking about something earlier that I wanted to bring up. I do want to bring in Jerry Jones here soon. She has a poem she'd like to share.
I'm so excited about the poem. I really am.
And then I'd like to get into some topics that I think would be really important to discuss, like the difference between the feeling of fear and excitement, and how resistance or flow and acceptance might be, a part of that, and a few other things. But if you'd like, let me see if I can bring her on, and then we can get that started. Let me see if I can make that happen, Jerry. You're going to be coming on here, girl. Add people. I'm giving a little narrative of my...
Jerry has amazing poems, Kelly-Ann. You will be very impressed, I'm sure. Everybody loves Jerry. We love you, Jerry.
Yeah, we love Jerry. Okay, hopefully.
There she is. Yep, you did it. She'll answer.
Okay, cool.
Jerry, ring, ring, ring.
Hey, Jerry. Oh, and I forgot to turn the thing off. Oh, no.
It's okay. You can
I've done it. I turned the
Push
show
the mute
off.
button, Jerry.
Oh, God, push the mute button, man. All right, I'm not here. Cheerio.
No.
No, Jerry, stay.
I meant on your browser.
Oh, yeah, I can't do it on my browser. I'm not clever enough for that, so I shut it off.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you on. I hear a reverberation thing.
Yes, I just took my headset off. Oh, I need to turn the AC off to its main routine here. Right, okay, I'm ready now.
Jerry, your AC is causing an echo. I'm just kidding.
I know, I turned the AC off.
I'm just
It's
kidding.
like a hothouse in here.
Go ahead, Judy. See, I don't think you have an echo anymore.
Is that all right now?
Now Jerry has the echo.
Yeah, you're good. It's good now.
Okay, good. So Jerry, I know that we kind of chatted a little earlier, and you were talking about a poem that you wrote, and I would so love for you to share that with everybody.
Good.
And I want to welcome you and introduce you to Kelly-Ann.
Yes, it's lovely to hear you.
I bet.
Hi there. Hi, I'm so excited to hear your poem. I write poetry myself, so it's really nice to meet a fellow poet or poetess, depending on how you prefer it.
Well, I'm a poet because I write poems instead of poems.
Oh, good.
It's a play on words, yes. With Jones. Poems by Jones.
Poems by Jones. So, yeah, this one makes me laugh because I just ended up calling it a ha 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 because it made me laugh so much. And it's because, you know, having been brought up in sort of British sort of Church of England, and, you know, I was given the perception that God was this sort of cross man on a cloud that was going to shake his finger at me and tell me I was a naughty, wicked little girl and I'd go to hell if I didn't follow all the rules. So I had an awful lot of trouble with that. And then over the years I came to sort of perceive this power as something very different. And one particular teacher that helped me a lot was Patricia Cota-Robles, and she taught that, you know, this power is a masculine and feminine energy, and it's not just Father God, it's Mother God as well. And the fact that Mother God has been able to re-enter our chakras and everything now, everything is starting to balance out, and that's been the problem. The balance of energy has been, you know, completely disturbed. So I have a lot of trouble when somebody keeps saying he and him about God. So that was a discussion that was going on in the chat room last night. And I'm like, oh, I've got a poem about this. So that's what kind of brought this on. So I guess I better share it with you and see
First
what you're...
of all, I'm sorry, Jerry. Are you saying God is not a man? Is that what you're
I'd
saying right
say so. The bad news is God is not a man.
Exactly.
Actually, this is probably the argument I don't want to get into on the phone with three females. Go ahead, Jerry.
Right. Stay quiet, mate. So. Right. So here it goes. They call him God. They say Almighty. They say to praise him is your duty. They say we must fear him, live in dread of punishment for our sins. What nonsense we are fed. Who is to say that this God is a him, and what indeed is really a sin? Why fear a power that is only love? Why fear something that has so much to give? Some call this power God, some say a God. Some call this power God, some say divine. Some use some symbols and some use a sign. Now, some say this God is father and mother, and I feel there is more about this to discover. To me, this huge power is good right the way through. It is powerful energy for me and for you. It is masculine and feminine in perfect flow, sending us messages to help us grow. I wish to suggest a phenomenon. What if one day someone just said it wrong? And they said that God word when they really meant good. Let's change it back now. Really, we could.
Wow.
Loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Yay, applause.
And I've been calling our creator good or goodness. And I have another poem I called Goodness. I wrote that a while ago. And for me, it's just a goodness. Or everything about it is good. And people do sometimes say goodness knows and stuff like that, don't they?
Yes, of course.
And I think that's the right term. I think somebody just missed the no out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah. Don't you think it's really possible?
Absolutely. One of the books I read early on is called The Misunderstood God, and it was about and it was written by a pastor, and all his experiences with his congregation, with the people coming to him, you know, worrying about the wrath of God and the judgment of God and all these things, and how it was just all a total sham. And God is love, so how could he be judgmental or have wrath or do, throw lightning bolts up our ass, whatever he wants to do. That happened to me once. No joke.
This God that is love. It's not like he's like God or like love, or, that he acts like love. He is love. It says so very clearly. Wants to throw, 3/4, if not more, of the population of the whole planet, just this planet, into fiery hells of death and watch them suffer for eons. I mean, please. Anyway, this does not compute.
Yeah. Jerry, that was awesome. As usual.
Yeah, I fluffed it a bit, but you got the message, so that's all right.
It sounded great. You have a masterful delivery ability as well, so it's beautiful.
You want to do the goodness real quick now? This one,
absolutely.
This one just explains what it is altogether. Goodness resides within me. It flows around endlessly. Goodness is light. It is love. It is power. All over and through us, its love does shower. Goodness is the power that I pray to. It is here for me, and it is here for you. Goodness is here for all mankind. Goodness is within every mind. Goodness penetrates body and soul. It's like a spirited rock and roll. Goodness lifts the spirit, the mood. It is a completely nourishing food. Feel the power. Feel the light. Love this goodness with all your might. Goodness is here now and forevermore. Goodness is the creator of natural law.
Nice.
Wow, nice. So good. Awesome.
I changed that. I did say goodness is the creator of every law, but I've realized that there's all these ridiculous laws we've got on in this world at the moment that we need to get rid of. We need to get back to common law, which is natural law.
Amen.
I absolutely say all we need is, what did I say the last day? Common sense, common courtesy, common law, done, simple, overdone.
Jerry for president.
Yeah.
Amen.
Simple, right? Let's make it simple.
It has to be simple. That's where the elegance is. The chaos comes. Not that, it's interesting because, we've got all of this talk about goodness and love, and that is, I think, the absolute base of all that exists. But we're here to play, at least we have been. I think we're moving out of that now. But we've been here to play within the forgetting of that. And, within this realm of contrasts and dichotomy and all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's expanded soul level. I think it's expanded the all it is because of this game that we brave, amazing souls came here to play within. And now it's time that we're waking up to this, and it's like, no more. All right, we've done it. We've got this. Yep. Now it's time to wake up and clear. It's not even clearing it. It's integrating of all of it.
Yep. Yeah. Reconciliation. And complete reconciliation.
Absolutely.
I think that the leading cause of people forgetting these fundamental ideas of our existence is just we're so caught up in the distraction of everything that's going on, and that's the key. That's the key of the what do we call them now? The partners in contrast.
Partners in contrast are powers that wish they still were.
Yeah, so Kelly-Ann, we don't call them the powers that be. We call them the powers that were for a while. We totally abandoned Cabal and Illuminati, so now they're our partners in contrast.
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
Me.
Yeah. But that's kind of where that was one of the biggest tools in their toolbox is, what can we do to keep the masses distracted? And I think that no matter how hard any outside force tries to distract us at this point, we are waking up to so much power within that is beyond the ability to be distracted. People are sensing it, they're feeling it, they're going more inside of themselves now naturally because of the pinnacle, the point of evolution that we're in is that's one of the ingredients. And
right, it's the vibrational field is getting so high right now. It doesn't allow anything that isn't based on the good, something that is good for all that is.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I get most of my joy in discussions now. Is it's not even so much, I mean, yes, my what I put out in the blog, and and what we talk about on some of these radio shows, we're raising awareness with all the things that's going on in the world, because this is very important, but there's just as many things going on within the world within us as there are that's going on in the world without us. And when we really start to think, when we really start to believe and know that everything in our reality, everything in our existence is a reflection of what's happening in our inner world, then all of a sudden we start to really pay much stronger conscious attention to what we're allowing into that inner world and how we're perceiving that inner world. And people are a lot of people are really confused by that. What does this mean? Why am I looking within? Because there's they don't have necessarily these radio shows to listen to, or a community of people to talk to about their spirituality. I mean, there's little pockets of existence around this world where these people live in vacuums. They have nobody to talk to about it, but they feel it.
Yes.
Because one thing is guaranteed: if a handful of people feel something and if something's going on within, if that's a reflection of what's going on a much larger scale with a lot more people. And the internet gives us the connectivity to reach out to those people and for people to connect with other like-minded folks that are going through very similar experiences. But it's beautiful to talk about because it's so vast and so powerful. There's so many layers to it. And,
well, Brian, I think that this is such a great stepping on point. Not stepping off, but stepping on point for something that I think a lot of people are dealing with right now, and that is, the whole death and destruction of this construct that's falling down around us, and people get mesmerized by it, and they get caught up in the picture of the bad guys, or the womb that can no longer sustain us, or the tower that's falling, that they think that if they don't scream it at the top of their lungs and change it all with all of that they're not doing their job. And then they look at people who say, no, I'm not focusing on that because I understand that what I focus on is what I bring towards me. And I'm seeing a big chasm. Excuse me, hold on. I'm seeing a big kind of chasm with people who are kind of, in my view, sort of stuck in that mesmerized version of what's going on, and it's almost like they're falling into the abyss that they see everything falling into, instead of realizing that yes, it's falling down, but you get to decide which where you want to go with this. Do you want to focus on that? Do you want to have that catch you and pull you in, or do you want to focus on the phoenix rising out of the middle of these ashes?
Kelly-Ann, I'm curious, how do you, with all of the perceived chaos and drama that's happening in the world, how do you, for yourself and with your clients and your following, how do you manage all of that and integrate it into your work and how you perceive it and what you ultimately take away from it?
I completely agree with a lot of what Judy's saying about how people are starting to wake up and realise that what they focus on and what they give their energy and attention to is what they're actually pulling towards them. I've been like a vehemently political person for a very long time. I was raised quite political, I would say, and I've always been kind of very leftist, very liberal, like Jerry was saying, very interested in re-establishing common law and getting rid of all of this legislation, helping people wake up to the reality that putting your tick in a ballot box does not mean freedom. All of the boxes are essentially the same. It's a big ploy, all of that kind of thing. But I do focus less on the political side of me now. I feel that I have much more of an understanding that comes from a psycho-spiritual place, a psycho-spiritual perspective, where my interest mainly falls towards people who also have woken up to this realization but want to do what they can do in their own lives and on their own terms to bring into being the kind of world that they want to see established. I think we have to be realistic about what's out of our control and what's in our control, and we have to get serious and clear about where we actually want to put our energy, because I really do feel, and Judy was saying this to me the other day, that where I'm putting my thoughts and where I'm putting my intentions, that's what I'm going to get back, and I shouldn't be surprised by that. Judy was saying that she wanted to talk about resistance and allowance a little bit, and that really interested me because a while ago I was thinking about the very fabric of a protest between, for example, the police and a bunch of people that are pushing against the police, and they're trying to protect the bank and the people in the bank and all of this kind of thing. And that to me looks like a whole lot of resisting a problem, pushing against a problem rather than allowing a solution. And whereas I used to be very involved in that world, now I'm kind of about going off and finding a solution, even if it's only on a very small scale and one which I can control within my own human power. I feel like that's a better way of doing it than actually being involved in that resistance and being involved in that problem. And also, I just wanted to quickly say, Brian, with regard to what you were talking about people waking up, well, you were both talking about it actually, about people waking up to the understanding that what they see going on in the outside world is a reflection of what's within. I'm a pagan, and I feel that pagans have that down and have done for the longest time. In fact, one of our main mottos that we tend to use is as above, so below, or another one we favour is as within, so without.
Those are my two absolute favourites. I've been saying those for years and years, and I don't know what pagan means particularly other than it's earth-based, but that would be a really great question to ask you as well.
Sure. God, that spectrum is so broad. You're kind of making me wish I hadn't brought it up because I'm not going to discuss this.
Okay.
So many pagans that will listen to this over time and think, don't screw this up, Kelly-Ann.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's so
no way.
I can't tell you how many people
everyone that
know me. I'm sorry.
The general idea that many pagans or neo-pagans, whatever you want to call it, favour is that everything is a microcosm of the macrocosm, and that's why we get so into the Wheel of the Year, because we recognise that everything that's going on with the changing of the seasons reflects what's going on with our changing and our shifting and our transition. And again, I feel this is just another process of allowing rather than resisting. When we have a look at what in the outer world reflects what's in the inner world, I personally have a lot less time then to make Molotov cocktails and try to physically harm people or threaten people or harass people who might not necessarily think the same thing as me. I have a lot less time for that now. I have a lot more time in my heart for thinking about concepts like Brahman, unity, oneness, the light in me seeing the light in you, and I think that kind of thing generally tends to go to more of a productive place.
Absolutely. That's exactly where where I am and many of us here, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Fighting, total surrender and letting go of all resistance. Jerry just said what you say in the chat room. Fighting stuff never works. I totally agree with that. Because there's a lot of people that look at everything that's going on in the world right now. You got I'm not even going to start laundry listing off all the problems that are perceived to be going on in the world right now, because they're very real problems on a lot of levels. But you can either choose to look at that. It's all perspective as far as I'm concerned. You can either choose to look at that as, oh my God, this is just going to hell in a handbasket, or you can look at it and say, oh my God, look at how much things are changing. Yep. And for when there's a fireworks show, you don't use this as an illustration. When you go to watch a movie, this is really dramatic movie. You can get.
You're echoing, Brian.
I am echoing. I don't know what's going on.
We're all echoing.
Hold on. Is that better?
No. Try it again. We're all echoing.
How about now? All right, everybody else mute while I'm talking real quick to see if it's...
Okay, hold on. Am I muted?
Nope, you're not muted.
My mute button doesn't work.
Okay, am I still echoing?
No.
Stopped. Okay, good. So...
Okay.
Oh, I'm muted. I'm echoing again. Oh, people in the chat room, echo.
What you put out comes back.
Thinking about echoing, Brian, and then you'll stop echoing.
I'm thinking about, that's all I can think about now. That's like saying, don't think about elephants. Automatically, I'm going to think about elephants.
I think
okay, it went away. Did it stop?
I think.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It did. So, I think I talked about this. I've always we have so many dang radio shows. I'm like, have I ever talked about this before live on the radio? Are people going to be hearing this again? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yogananda, he in Autobiography of a Yogi, he talks about going to the movies, and you go into the movies, and you got all those amazing pictures and people doing all sorts of crazy things, and it's dramatic or it's exciting or it's a thriller or it's an adventure or whatever it is. And all of those pictures on that screen are all just lights and colors, and it's not real. And all those pictures on that screen, they all come from where? The bright white light in the back of the theater that's projecting the images on that screen. And when you look up at that light, it's just a white light. Think about that as the light of creation. And so everything on that screen is just this big picture show. And that you can look at life like that. It's just this world is just a big cosmic picture show. And yes, it can be dramatic, and yes, it can be exciting, and yes,
how boring if it weren't.
Yes, it can be sad, and yes, it can be an adventure, and yes, it can be all those things. But it's best not to get too caught up in the drama. And so you can either grab a bucket of popcorn and your licorice or whatever it is you want to eat in the movie theater, and you can enjoy it while not getting too drawn into it. And I think so many people have this thing where they get so sucked in to everything that's going on around them, and they start to feel like they're caught up in all of it. And that ultimately is a choice. I was doing a Reiki session with my cousin over the weekend, and she fights anxiety, and she's got a lot going on in her mind, and I'm trying to work with her on a couple of these things, and I said, you can take two people, right? You can take one person who is really stressed out, who is something bad is always happening to this person. They just nothing ever goes right for this person, and they just feel like just this world doesn't make any sense, and they're just really caught up and really bound, and it's a hard life. And then you can take another person, and they're really connected, and they everything just always seems to work for this person, and they're just so happy, and when they walk into a room, they light it up, and everybody feels empowered just being around this person, and it's not ego, it's just they're just so happy and just love-filled and joyful.
They shine from the inside out.
They shine from the inside out, and then you ask these two people, write a page or 2 pages of how you see the world, or write a book for that matter of how you see the world. You're going to have 2 totally separate worlds. They're not going to have anything to do with each other. One's going to be real dark and really sad. The other one's going to be super light, super happy, and super joyful, and everything is great. All of that is all perception.
Choice. It makes me think of 2 different scenarios. One is being on a roller coaster and getting, at the top of the hill and looking down, and you can't even see what's below you, and you just free fall. And there are people who white knuckle it and scream the whole time, and other people who throw their hands up and they scream in laughter. You've got that, and then you've got the other scenario that reminds me of what Kelly was talking about earlier about the protesters in D.C., because I've been to a few of them myself. But I will not go to one that protests against something. I will go to one that is pro something. If it's pro, then it's actually asking creation to create something that is better, not to fight against something that already is.
That's such a great point. To campaign to get something enforced that's going to help people or that's going to smooth relations between people, that is the ultimate a mass human expression of allowance. That's such a good point, that not all protests are the same in that way.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that we're talking about. It's just this mindset that people get stuck in, that they feel like they have to fight against something.
Of course. And
all it does is bring that something into their view stronger and stronger all the time. And so they have more to fight against. But when you're not fighting, but when you are lending your energies to growing something beautiful, growing something that helps everybody, then that will also come into your realm of life. That's how it works.
See, I agree. I agree with that on so many levels. But then I start to look at what's going on in, say, for example, Brazil, and you got 30 million some odd people who are, sick of being controlled by their government, and they're standing up because they want to create a better way. Well, they could be perceived as standing up against something that they're fighting against, but it seems like a lot of good could potentially come from that. I mean, how do you
I think it's important that people learn about how this works. I think it's important for people to get out in the streets, but I also think it's important that they come out with a particular mind frame. What you resist persists. We know that works.
So it's the energy you bring to it.
Behavior, personally. Yeah. I think a lot of people during Occupy London, and then following on from that, when we watch these things happen in Brazil, it's really about the behavior that the people are exhibiting and what kind of where they are in their heart space. For example, I don't appreciate somebody throwing something at a police officer in an attempt to hurt them for defending something as part of their job, which they believe in through the filter of their consciousness. Right. But I do appreciate a massive bunch of people standing together outside their Parliament building, saying we're not going to leave until something is done. Now that's positive, and that's got nothing to do with inciting violence or with making prejudgments. But there are these odd factions that start setting fire to things, and I think, okay.
I think it takes education. I think a lot of those people would understand this concept if they heard it. If they just let it sink in for a little while. I don't think that people have really, some of the people that are doing this, I don't think that they've actually felt that understanding of how energy works from the inside out.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think in a lot of ways it's quite easy for somebody like me to talk about that kind of thing, although of course I have been involved in protests, and I was involved to an extent in Occupy London as well.
I went to Occupy DC. I was there in the first days, but I was there. I created the signs, and all my signs were positive, and I gave them all away.
Cool. That's awesome.
I forgot about that until you just mentioned it.
That's a really good point. I mean, that's a really good point, though. It's about the energy you bring to it. It's one thing to stand up against the system with anger and hate, and it's another one to stand up against it with love and compassion. I mean, look at all the things that some of the people that I've told
the difference between fear and love.
It really is. I choose to not pay my DMV registration because I feel it's enforced upon me. I feel it takes away my rights. That's just one of the many examples of everybody knows how unplugged I am from the system. But I can just not pay it, or I could go into the DMV and start a protest. Which isn't completely necessary. It's not going to really do anything. But the energy that people bring to these kinds of things is ultimately, like, I love that picture in Brazil where they're approaching the police with flowers and hugs.
Oh, I love that. You know what? We have a caller, and I'd really like to take a caller now because we haven't done that yet. And
caller, let's do it.
Let's do it. Caller. So let's take caller 330. Caller 330.
Hello?
Hello? Hi. How are you?
Hi, how
Welcome.
are you? Oh, excellent. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Who are we talking to?
This is Jamie from Ohio.
Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
Hey, Jamie from Ohio.
What would you like to talk about, girl?
Well, I'm new to the whole Blog Talk Radio. I just created an account a couple days ago, but I noticed your particular show was focused on positive energy, and I was thinking that today. I like to surround myself with good thoughts, and I definitely agree with so much of what you're saying, that we attract our thoughts in our life. So if we surround ourselves with negative people and circumstances, then we seem to attract more of that. So I'm interested more in what your show has to offer. I really don't have any questions at this time. I just really am just excited to be here and be a part of the positive energy.
Well, thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad you found us the way that you did. That's so cool. Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, if you feel like continuing the conversation, just raise your hand again. But otherwise, I'll go ahead and let you go. But can you tell us one thing? I'm hearing a lot of background noise. I don't know if that's
she's probably driving. It's okay.
Okay.
You're going to ask what brings her joy?
Oh, you're hearing it from my
end? But I think that it's your stuff. It's not hers.
All right, Jamie. It's okay that you
yeah, Jamie, what brings you joy, hon?
What brings me joy? Just loving other people, being a part of the process of moving forward and growing and learning. I just love love. Not so much loving in love. I just love to love people, and it's exciting that I can meet people that are similar to me, that have the same objectives. I do have some natural psychic intuitive gifts, so I'm exploring, opening myself up to that publicly, which is a whole different realm for me. Now that I'm in my later 30s, I finally have come to that point where I'm ready to, I guess, put a label on what I've been able to do my entire life. And it's a little scary, but exciting at the same time. So I find this Blog Talk Radio is a great way to network and meet people that are like myself. So,
well, I have a feeling that if you I have a feeling that if you tune into the other radio stations or the shows that are on 5D Media Network, you're going to find a lot of companions. There are a lot of people on all of the shows that have to do with 5D Media Network that are just absolutely wonderful and inspiring. So keep that in mind for yourself.
We preach a lot of fear, doubt, worry, hate, and suffering around here. So just kidding, universe. Jamie, thank you so much for calling in. Welcome to the family, and we hope to hear from you again soon.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Bye now.
You too, Jamie. Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Oh, Bob would love that answer. That's Bob's answer. You know, when Bob we had Bob on the show, we asked him what brings him the most joy, and that was his response. He loves loving people.
Yeah.
And gosh, what a powerful. I mean, we could talk about that for a whole show.
You know, the fear and excitement thing, I think, is a really cool subject to get into, because a lot of people, to me anyway, fear and excitement are two sides of the same coin. And when you feel that feeling, like when you're like launching into something that you've never done before, like with this radio show, there's that potential for fear. Or if you just shift yourself a little bit and you wipe away the old paradigm of what you're used to thinking that it's supposed to look like, you can pull up excitement in that same space.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's weird because the caller just said as well from her own experience that she's actually told herself her whole life what her limitations were, and now in her late 30s she's like, I'm playing around with my psychic and intuitive gifts, and actually I don't care who knows it. And she said it's scary, but I'm sure that what's behind that, the backbone of that is excitement. So it's about trying to discern between the two, and it's about trying to work out which one is going to give you something productive and potentially also give others something productive, because others can take a lot from someone's psychic and or intuitive gifts, and that's something that you're giving out to the world. If you were stuck with fear, then you wouldn't be so able to give that out and to get it for yourself. So it's really weird that this should come up, just as she said that in her own life there is this fear/excitement thing going on, and she's actually able to navigate it so that she can go towards that excitement.
You know, it's funny because I was telling Kelly-Ann before we got on the call that I watched one of her YouTube videos. It's called Embrace the Spark and Start the Work. And that's what Jamie was just talking about, was that I think that And Kelly, I'd love for you. It was such a. I've just put the link.
That's cool, Brian.
Into the chat, and anybody that's not on the chat that's listening, you can find Kelly-Ann's YouTube videos by looking for the Four Queens.
Oh, and she's got some amazing videos. You're all gonna love
them. But I think that what Jamie's experiencing right now is indicative of what so many of us are going through in some way, where the truth of who we really are and what we have to offer, if we've tried to stuff it in a sack, that sack, the bottom is ripping out of it, and it's gonna get its way out of that sack no matter. And and it could be anything in our lives that we've been suppressing, that's now bubbling up to the surface to be shared and to be exposed for what it is. Because a lot of these times these things are gifts that we just haven't embraced yet. And one of Kelly's videos, and it's only about 10 minutes long, Embrace the Spark and Start the Work. I'm going to let Kelly speak to it, but this is my takeaway, Kelly. Let me know, Kelly-Ann, let me know if I'm on track. Mm-hmm. It's the whole idea of what really resonated for me in this video was the analogy that you used to when you want to start working and you want to build a table. And you said that somewhere throughout that process, that table might become a chair, it might just become a toy, but you're going to end up with something, and you shouldn't not start the work because you get so entangled in the idea of the total end result that you get attached to it, and you have no idea how you're going to get all the way there. And the idea is if you have some kind of an inspiration that's bubbling up inside of you, act on it, and don't worry about what it's going to ultimately turn into. Just go for it and see where the universe guides it. Am I pretty close on that general message?
Yes, absolutely. And it's got a lot to do with the fear excitement thing, because I've noticed so much in my own life, not only with my creative life, but a lot in my creative life, that fear is really about not being present in the moment. Fear is what you attach to the future results or the past mistake that you worry that might come around again, or the expectations of other people, the expectations of society, what will your parents think, what ought you to think of the work that you're about to embark upon. If you're present in the moment, then it's just the seed of excitement. The fear gets added on when you start to not be present and you start to go on this journey of what's going to happen. Is it going to be good enough? And I feel that's why so many people in the kind of community that we're involved with talk about being present, staying present, and feeling safe to be present. What they really mean is stop giving energy to the past and the future and expectation and ideals and your self-image and your ego. If you're present, all you will feel is pure excitement and pure potential. Just stay there. That's the useful place to be. So I think that's got a lot to do with it as well. It's just recognizing that fear really comes when you start putting energy in those other places that are kind of more dodgy and more shadowy. Excitement comes from being in that moment. And yeah, I will talk a lot more on the channel about the creative process and about the fear that happens when we try to undertake something truly creative and the ego that's attached to it, and how to kind of shrug that off, because it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. I don't think I'd have started putting pen to paper even once in my life if I hadn't have had these epiphanies about the difference between hanging on to fear and really riding on the back of excitement. So yeah, you took from the video exactly what I would want somebody to take from it, which is great.
Brilliant.
Fear, false expectations appearing real.
Yes.
For you, because it's always some attachment, to the future. I'm worried I'm going to lose my job. I'm worried I'm not going to have enough money. I'm worried my girlfriend's going to break up with me. I'm worried I'm not going to make the right thing for dinner. I'm worried what the book that I want to write isn't going to turn out the way that I want it to.
And it didn't work out for me before, so it's not going to work out for me this time.
Yeah.
Or it's so uncharted territory, and it could go any way, and I'm freaked out by whatever the end result's going to be, because it might not be exactly the way that I see it, and that was a huge aha for me with the whole idea around fear, because fear is it's one of those things. It's a function of the ego, and it's our mind playing tricks on us. And when you realize it in the moment, there's natural fear. There's like, holy shit, I might get burned fear. where it's a safety precautionary measure that our physiology does to keep us protected and keep us alive, and then there's a fear that's a mind-based fear. And when you start going down that road of fearing something that's ultimately going to happen, really what you're doing is you're creating the energy that allows it to happen with much more ease.
Exactly, and I think it's important to also put into this, to interject into this, that, you know, we've been conditioned to think this way for so long, and so it's really not your thoughts you're thinking thoughts from outside of yourself that you've been conditioned to think for your whole life, and your parents did and their parents did, but they really no longer hold weight when you understand how the energy of the universe works. And so when you realize that it's just conditioning and it's not you can free yourself.
Yep. Honest to God, sometimes when you guys talk, I am just like, it's like a big light bulb comes up over my head. I'm like, oh my goddess, yes. That is exactly what I needed to hear at this moment in time. Like, it's so true. Why do we take ownership of the thoughts that we are consistently and systemically plagued by? Why do we say, I'm so concerned about my thought about this that I've had since I was, 6 years old or whatever? Why does nobody turn around to us and say, is that your thought? Is that your thought?
Right, because we've been told our thoughts are not worthy. We must look to people who are above us to tell us what to do, and that's just no longer true.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we because these things come from our mind, we've created this system. We talk about it as though it's us, but in fact, if that's what we were trained to do from the very beginning, then have we really actually started discovering which thoughts come from us? And if so, that's where we really need to place focus. And that, Judy, is why you are a transformational thought coach.
I love the way Eckhart Tolle, the way that he puts it, and this was when I first, I couldn't read Power of Now because it was so dang hard there was so much, it was so content rich, I had to listen to it on audio CD, and it was so unbelievably profound, especially to hear Eckhart's as the what do you call it when they read?
The narrator.
The narrator, yeah. So because he's got such a mellow, voice.
He's drolly.
Yeah, but
he was one of my first little gurus too.
I've learned so many amazing things from his work as well. But the whole idea of we are not our minds. We are not our thoughts. We are not our clothes on our back. We're not our things that we own. We're not the car that we drive or the job that we have. We're the consciousness that is outside of all those things. And when you look at your mind from the perspective of watching it, being a conscious observer to your thoughts as they're happening, don't they become so much less controlling over you? I mean, when you can start to look at the thought processes that are going on in your mind all the time, you disassociate from them, and now you can start to point kind of a little prod or a little finger at the things that you're thinking. You go, well, these things I'm thinking over here, they're all, they're high vibration. They're the things that you want to manifest, the things that you want to attend. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue to nurture these. Then all of a sudden the thought comes in like you're not good enough or it's not going to work or this and that. As you become more able to be the conscious observer of your own mind, when those kinds of things come in, all of a sudden you can point at them. And when you point it at them, it's like shining a flashlight into a dark room. The darkness ceases to exist. It takes away its ability to control you just in your own personal recognition of the thing that is you're thinking. There's a really amazing quote that I love, and that really I remember when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, because I was worrying about all sorts of job stuff. I was self-employed and things were really tough financially, and it said, see if I can remember it. It's release the habit of worry in all its forms by reaching a general blanket decision. Nothing life has to offer is worth the price of worry. With this choice, because it is a choice, will come poise, peace of mind, and calmness of thought, which will bring happiness. Basically, there's never anything to worry about. Ever.
There isn't. It's just that we've been told that everything we're supposed to worry about everything, and so it's just really a matter of deprogramming ourselves and being the observer and catching ourselves as we do that, and then being gentle with ourselves and not flogging ourselves for having those thoughts when we finally realize that, they're not ours anymore. It's like...
Well, I don't know about you, Judy. I like to flog myself from time to time. Just kidding. All right, sorry. Bad joke.
I think that this conversation has got me thinking about something that Judy and I were talking about a lot of people lately feeling like they're being misunderstood and feeling as though as they progress on their journey and as they evolve emotionally and spiritually, they're actually having people look at them through the filter of their consciousness and seeing things which are actually, from their perspective, totally wrong. They're being misunderstood, they're being misinterpreted, and it's very frustrating. And what you were saying, Brian, about Eckhart talking about how we're not our minds, we need to observe with detachment the things we own, the self-image that we put out. All of those things can be observed from a distance, understanding that we ourselves are separate. I find that people who have reached that understanding give a lot less of a crap, a lot less of a flying banana about the way they are perceived by others. It doesn't affect them as much because they're aware that the judgments that are placed upon them as they are trying to evolve and as they're trying to transition, yes, they may be unfortunate and yes, they may create discord, but as long as you are comfortable with what you're trying to achieve and as long as you can observe with detachment the judgments that others make upon you and the judgments you make upon others as just part of the course, you're in a much more secure position. I see a lot of people in the self-help community, particularly on YouTube and on blogs, who now have such crazy followings, and with those crazy followings come a few people who appear to have misunderstood them, who want to publicly ridicule them or who want to rile against them and say, you're wrong, the thing you preach is wrong, your ethics are wrong, you're going about it the wrong way. The reason that they carry on making their videos and getting their message out there and maintaining their blogs is because they understand that detachment. They understand that the judgments that are being made don't need to affect them as much. So just with what Judy was saying about people feeling like they're being misunderstood, and I don't know if you two want to chime in with your own experiences, because I'm sure that you have experiences of being misinterpreted, but I think that lesson about observing with detachment is central to being secure with yourself despite the judgments that other people make of you.
And I'd like to take that even one step further and say that once you get to the place where you really embody your knowledge, your understanding, I should say, that intuition of that universal law, everything around you starts changing, and people that tend to want to come up and ridicule you or say, no, you're wrong or whatever, they either fade away from your reality, or they come into your reality and they treat you with respect even though they don't agree. I think the more you embody what you believe, the more your reality will produce others that resonate with that. I'm sure of it. I see it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally. I agree.
Yeah. Anytime that you put yourself out there with any kind of work that you do, it doesn't matter, if you blog, if you got a radio show, if you do tarot readings, if you have, some website, whatever it is, you put yourself in a position where you're subject to criticism. I mean, that just goes with the territory. And, there's a time in my life where if somebody tried to attack something that I said or something that I did or something, I remember taking it very personally, like, oh my gosh, because you read it and you go, wow, because that could potentially represent the opinion of all these others, and if all these others think the same thing, then where does that leave me? And all of a sudden, if you start going down that road, I mean, it's a slippery slope. Now, I mean, that's what we were talking a little bit about before the show about. I was like, I wouldn't mind being famous if it was like a Deepak Chopra famous, but the whole Hollywood thing, because look at all of those magazines that sell all of those Us Weekly people just ripping people apart. But I've gotten to the point now where if I get a blog post, that somebody that's just really upset by something that I said or something that I did. Yes, and surprise, surprise, there's things that I say that doesn't make some people happy. I have no emotional reaction to it whatsoever. I'll reply back to the person and say, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. I really hope that I didn't offend you. Ultimately, if we're offended by anything, it has a lot less to do with the other person. and a lot more to do with us anyways. I love the quote, I am responsible for my happiness, so you're off the hook. We've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
But, so if you allow yourself to buy into somebody else's opinion, opinions are just opinions. No opinion is right or wrong inherently by nature. They are only one person's perspective of the way they see things. But there's always going to be some kind of opposition. There's always going to be somebody that tries to knock you down. Look at that person as your greatest teacher. That thank you, God, for giving me this person in my life because they are helping me to better understand the law of acceptance or the law of love or whatever it is that I was meant to learn from this.
Neutrality. And it's so funny because it brings me to the quote that I had for the day. How interesting is this? Not everyone will understand your journey. That's fine. It's not their journey to make sense of. It's yours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, in all areas of my life, there have, like for everybody else, been times where I feel like I've been misinterpreted or I feel like I've spoken my personal truth and somebody has taken it through the filter of their consciousness and it's come out like a load of rhubarb gobbledygook, and I'm like, no, hang on, wait, that's not what I said. And I feel like it's really even surprising to me these days that I've shifted to the extent that, as Brian said, when something like that happens to me, when somebody's angered or when somebody I feel has taken me out of context, there is now no emotional attachment other than potentially concern for the fact that it's bothered them so much. I come at it from a place of love. I'm concerned that they're upset, but I'm not concerned about how it looks on me or how it means about what people view me, how people view me. I'm not worried about that. I have no emotional attachment, and I'm even surprised with myself for that. I'm surprised that I've managed to shift that far. I never thought that would be the case, but it's amazing what great work you can do when you learn how to peel ego back a little bit and take that ego pressure off.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. It reminds me of last week's show.
Wow. Well said.
Yeah, beautiful. A friend of mine, actually somebody that I knew when I was in grade school and middle school, from my hometown, wrote me and said something. She sent me Ephesians something, which is, I don't remember exactly, but basically it's like, all these wonderful things that you're saying are really probably just the devil coming through. And then she wrote to me and said, I'm absolutely horrified and scared for you. And I found myself writing this beautiful, kind letter back to her and saying, thank you so much, for your concern. And, I assure you, I will take whatever comes to me. And please do not worry yourself. Don't put yourself in fear or angst because of me. I know what I take full responsibility for what I believe and how I feel about things. And, I love you for caring. Thank you.
Bet she wasn't expecting that response.
She never responded back. But that it's her stuff. It's not mine. And and how sweet in a way, for her to do that. And it's coming from her perspective, and I appreciate that. But it wasn't an argument. It was just just very simple, and I appreciated that. But I also know where I am, and and I'm real clear with knowing that where I stand is exactly where I'm meant to be at this moment.
Do you think it might have perplexed her? Do you think she might have read that and thought, well, there's just really no way that I can come back?
I don't know.
Probably.
And I didn't really give it much thought, honestly. I noticed that she didn't respond. I checked back a couple days later just to see if she did, and she didn't. But no, I'm not so sure I even considered, only because I can't read her mind.
Yeah,
and
you just went from heart level and said what you said from heart level, and that's really the end of your involvement in it. As you said, it's her stuff. All you can do is just be honest about your perception.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a personal choice whether we get baited in to something that somebody wants to try. You have the ability to choose to allow yourself to get wrapped up in something that somebody has to say or somebody's opinion of you.
Well, typically when we come back at people like that, it's because we're not really sure of our own stance. When we come back in a negative way or a something that we're like trying to shore up our stance, in a negative way, it's because we're still really not sure, and we're trying to get other people to agree with us. If we don't need other people to agree with us, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how. I'm sorry, Kelly-Ann, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. You carry on.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, think about if we really got wrapped up in the idea of defining ourselves based on everybody else's opinions or assumptions of who we are. I mean, that's scary.
Oh, yeah.
If you get real tied up in that.
I lived that way for a long time.
I mean, you're constantly recreating yourself, but you're constantly recreating yourself by somebody else's standards. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, the whole idea of limitation is 100% of it is self-imposed.
Absolutely.
And we get in the habit of saying, I can't do this because of this person, or I can't do that because of this situation or circumstance. Well, hogwash, that's bullshit. That's bull, and are you going to accept that you're limited? Ultimately, if you're going to allow yourself to be limited by something, and that's why Bashar calls us the masters of limitation. I think that's
true.
Once again indicative of this phase of human evolution, of consciousness evolution that we're going through.
Sure,
we're snakes shedding that skin, and we're not going to be defined by our ability to self-limit anymore, and that opens up magic and wonder and opportunity that's beyond the scope of our existing current state of imagination.
Oh, and I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. I still limit myself. I know I do. I see that, and I look at it and I realize, and I forgive myself, and I'm kind to myself about it because I know that I'm still just in the journey. But I understand from a really deep level that what you're saying, Brian, is right on. I mean, we can create things beyond our absolute imaginings, and we will soon.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it goes back to the whole idea. Somebody might say, well, that's, I'm so positive, and I don't worry, and I'm joyful, and I help people, and I do all of these great things, but I still have this issue revolving around, say, for example, financial stability. Right. And there's a lot of people that get really hung up on that. And I have to, in all complete honesty, I have been one of those people. And I don't have a whole heck of a lot of money right now, but I'm super happy with having my needs met and being able to create what I can create with what I do have, and just being grateful for what I do have. But I think that there's, from a subconscious level, there's a lot more going on than what we realize. And I think that ultimately what everybody really can try to wrap their heads around is that every situation that we talked about a little bit earlier, every situation that you're in, it's not necessarily because of some wrong move or mistake or some slip up along the way that has caused you to be there. You're there because there's some lesson and there's some purpose for you to ultimately be having that experience.
Here.
Total surrender to that. I talked about it in my Journey Home from the Sierra blog that I did about, losing my, having my luggage get stuck in New York when I was in Morocco. It took all but an instant for me to say, well, I guess the universe wanted me to travel light. And actually, it was a blessing. I didn't really need it. I had everything I needed in my backpack, and I got my luggage 2 days later. It was no big deal. But, a lot of people in that situation probably would have freaked out. But think about that the next time you lose your luggage, you get a flat tire, you lose $20, you get into a fight. If you can be that conscious of the situations and circumstances that play themselves out in your life, you really start to connect to the wonder of it all. And all of a sudden life becomes this adventure, like this perfectly guided energetic trail that'll never take you down the wrong course.
Right.
Ultimately, if it feels stuck or it feels whatever, then there's something even in that that's wonderful and exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like, okay, I do this now because I've been through it enough that I finally let go. That I released, I surrendered. For the most part, probably a good, 90-some% of it, I totally surrender. And what I do is I go, okay, what's coming from this? Because I'm sure it's going to be good.
I totally agree, and I think as I progress and I get more and more and more like that, I recognize that I am generating more opportunities to spend time with the like-minded, that people who thought like that more in the first place are now more attracted to spending time with me because I think that way. And all over the place, dotted around, there are opportunities for people to come into my life who also see the splendor in the unfolding, unpredictable moment. And that's really great to know that when you actually start to embrace that in your own life, you manifest opportunities to meet up with people who feel similarly, and that's when the adventure becomes so much greater.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, I know it does make a lot of people uncomfortable. You know, I made a comment in one of my blog posts where I said uncertainty is bliss, because to me it represents adventure and an infinite amount of possibilities that can unfold in every single moment. It's all what you ultimately allow to be and allow to unfold. And there's a lot of different ways of looking at that. And people, sometimes people might get really maybe detracted by the idea of, well, what do you mean? There's a lack of the idea of stability in that type of approach. And I don't think that it means, for me, it doesn't mean necessarily, and I had this conversation with my fiance last night, it doesn't necessarily mean a total end of all planning. It just means that, for me, I can approach every situation with an open mind that whatever plan I try to create, it has to be fluid and subject to change depending on new information and new data that comes into the picture that I can't predict ahead of time. And when you do that, then you don't have to build that table. You can be totally happy with that awesome freaking rocking chair or that totally badass toy.
Totally, I agree. And I think tarot, ironically, considering it's considered to be a tool that can foretell destiny, is so much about actually letting go and embracing the unpredictable nature of life. The death card, for example, the judgment card. There's so many cards that are about saying, okay, you can only have so much control over what's coming, and you need to be malleable, flexible, pliable the rest of the time. You need to be like a tree. It's okay to be strong in the earth, to understand your roots, to understand your core, but the top of you had best be ready to bend with the wind, because if not, you're going to break. And I think that's a really key message that tarot gives to so many. And, you don't have to live your life like a totally traveling hobo with no possessions who's absolutely 100% uncomfortable with uncertainty. You don't have to live like that. There are different degrees of it for different people. I have clients that come to me that are highly ambitious, that are navigating their way through a complex career structure, and they know they've got what it takes to get to the top of that structure. So there's a lot of determination there. There's a lot of pressure. They don't want that pressure to become stress, but they want that pressure to keep them on the edge because they're at their best when they're on the edge. Now, they don't want any kind of spiritual counselor to come to them and say, give all of that up, pack all your crap in a bag and just go traveling around the world, man, just wing it. That's not what's important to them. They want me to focus on what's important to them. But what I can do is give them a little bit of dose of something like the death card and talk about the kind of things that Brian's talking about and say, okay, look, these are your priorities. This is your area of focus. I completely respect that. Let's talk about how we take some of that pressure off by just allowing you to be present. Let's work on mindfulness techniques, for example. Let's work on a certain amount of relaxation each day. And by doing this, you're not pushing anyone down a road that they don't want to be. You're allowing them to honor where they want to be in their life and where they want to get to. You're simply saying, with a little bit more of this perspective and a touch less of that perspective, you're going to find a comfortable, healthy balance where you're not going to be completely stressing out and your mind's not going to be exploding.
Absolutely, because ultimately, what you just said, it's a perfect illustration for the whole idea. There is no wrong way.
Precisely.
There's no wrong way. There's no right way. The right way is the way that works for you.
Here's something that I'd like to interject into this just a little bit, because I find that when people create these pictures of what they want to have happen in their lives, and they've got this picture and it's structured, and it doesn't come about because they're not energetically aligned with it, but they don't know that, so they don't want to really get into that. It's like, how dare you say that it's my fault? What I find is incredibly helpful, a tool to help people, is that it's not so much what you want to see in front of you, it's how you want to feel. Is that not right? It's
God, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
do you want to feel joy? Do you want to feel acceptance? Do you want to feel the abundance, the joy of the abundance around you? Then think ahead of you, put ahead of you, you know, in the now, though, imagine the feelings of having all of that right here, right now. Like, well it up inside of you for
Absolutely.
whatever it is that you want. Well it up inside of you. And then, as it dissipates naturally, let it go and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yeah.
you know, do it again maybe the next day. But let me tell you, and then knowing that, the picture could change, but the picture could be so much better than you could have ever imagined before.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. I 100% get what you're saying, and over the last year and a half, I've really come to believe that focusing on core desired feelings is so much more important than focusing on core desired goals, core desired future, anything like that, a core desired reputation. It's all about thinking about how you actually want to feel.
Well,
and
that's what
wake
it
up.
all comes down to.
Yep.
You know, people
Yep.
just don't realize that until they're approached with it, you know, until it's handed to them gently.
Exactly, and I've talked in videos before about how if we hang on to our goals, we give ourselves no opportunity to recognize when our goals might have changed, or when we might have evolved past them, or when we want something else, because we keep that goal in mind and we absolutely fossilize that goal. We stuff that goal in like a, you know, taxidermied animal. We pop it in the hallway and we say, yeah, this is what we want. We don't give ourselves a chance to check in. If we think about where we need to go or what we need to do to find joy, then we might find that the parameters have changed, but that's okay, because we're not going after being a
Oops.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, where'd she go? Well, basically, it gets down to when you create that picture and you fossilize it, as Kelly-Ann said, then that's all that it will be allowed, because the universe will definitely give you what you ask for. But when you open that picture up and you just put the feeling of how you want to feel about it, whatever it is, then you open that up, wide range. Anything could happen. And it will be beautiful if you hold that vibration.
Getting real stuck on having a goal work out exactly the way you planned it is just another form of attachment to some outcome.
Sure.
You know, and I read something one time. It was beautiful. It was called NATO living, not attached to outcome. Mm-hmm. And when you can totally release, and you see it, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, but then you release that into the universe, and then you go in the direction that could potentially ultimately get you there. But you understand and know that there might be some forks in the road that might take you down a different direction, because it just goes back to the whole idea that our own will for us and the will for us by our Creator can, and most of the time, are two separate things, two separate pictures, two separate
because
goals.
We're very limited in our own understanding.
Exactly. And when you can surrender to that, then all of a sudden what you really are doing is you're allowing magnificence to unfold in ways that you couldn't have imagined previously, with the way that all the information, all the data, and everything that you use to base that original goal or vision at the time that you created it. And then that's really where you kind of create the opportunity, you lay the landscape for things to really take flight in ways that you could have never imagined or perceived before.
Absolutely. And that's where being in joy.
Woohoo! That was a really weak woohoo. Woo! There you go. Woo!
We have got a minute and a half before we're off of this. Kelly-Ann, stay on afterwards. I just want to thank everybody. I just want to thank Kelly-Ann. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I loved this conversation between the three of us and with Jerry. And I'm so incredibly grateful for all of you who are listening in tonight. I am so excited. I want you all to start calling in and raising your hands so that you can join the conversation as well. I adore every single one of you. I love you all. Brian, Thank you. I can't even tell you how grateful I am that you're my co-host.
Love you too, Judy. Thank you everyone for listening. Everybody in the chat room, Kelly-Ann, thank you so much for being here. You are a top-notch 4-star ranter, just like me. You're welcome here anytime. Why don't you, in the closing 30 or 40 seconds, tell people where to go to find your work and take us home, girl.
Thank you.
Sure, you can catch me on my blog at thefourqueens.blogspot.com. You can catch me over on Etsy under The Four Queens and purchase a reading from me if you'd like. And I'm on YouTube under The Four Queens as well, so you can email me, say hello to me, message me on YouTube, etc. Stay in touch, get connected, etc.
Awesome. 10 seconds.
Kelly-Ann, I adore you, girl. I absolutely adore you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly-Ann. Love you guys.
Bye.
Don't forget to laugh. Have fun. Woohoo!